Welcome to Engineering 5. We're going to spend the next 2 weeks exploring the many fields of engineering, which many of you have already done through Homework Zero. And the hope is that at the end of this class, you'll be prepared to be a successful student, no matter what degree you pursue, and especially if you pursue your engineering degree. So we're going to be looking at a range of topics from time management to figuring out your best learning style to also providing you resources available to you to achieve your goals. By the end of this class, we hope that you will know what field of engineering you're most interested in pursuing for your degree, and or if you don't want to pursue engineering, which is totally a relevant portion of this class. You'll be introduced to the various fields. And if you come out of this saying, I want to do business or I want to do math or something else, that's also success in this class, as well as those of you who find your specialty. Because when you go into your four-year institution or start at Cabrillo for 2 years and then transfer, you don't want to waste your time. So you want to use this class as really a resource to figure out where you want to go. Let's see. What else did I want to say? So we want to identify early on in your academic career path what you want to do. And we, Joanne, myself, and Carl, are actually here as a resource to you to help you find your path. So we're available to you during these 2 weeks, but we're also around in general, and if you want to come back to us in the fall or, after class, before class, that's what we're here for. And our goal is really to help set you on your path. One of the things that we want to say, and the class goes a little fast during the summer, is that you need to sort of do a check-in with yourself during the class, after the class, in the evenings, maybe as you're reading the book and doing the homework assignments, and just see, did this resonate with me? Did what I did today, was that exciting to me? That might help you decide, if that's your specialty that you want to pursue. Or if you say, I didn't really find that very interesting today. That's not a field of engineering that interests me. That's good too. So try to do a check-in every day after class or later, a few hours after class, and just kind of reflect on what you've learned about during the day so that you have a better sense of, what you want to take away on that specific day. We're going to do a lot of fun activities. We have projects planned for almost every day of the 8 days. And a lot of those are geared towards giving you a little hands-on experience with that particular field of engineering. And I know that there was a kit that was available to pick up outside of Joanne's office on the Cabrillo campus. So please get that kit no later than today. Tomorrow we start with our first project. So that would be good to have handy for you. We're also going to have speakers who are Cabrillo alums or current students, and they will be also a wonderful resource. So think about if you have some questions you might want to ask of some of our speakers, because they'll be joining us during the Zoom sessions, and they can definitely talk about their experience going through Cabrillo and obtaining their engineering degree. So they're also a wonderful place to get a lot of insight. And then we're going to explore some of the industries that engineers work in and the engineering functions as well in this class. So that's kind of a broad overview of what's coming up in the next 8 days. It's really important that you attend all 8 days. In fact, it's required. So yeah, Joanne, did you want to add anything?
The idea what Priti said is that even at the end of this class, if you decide that engineering is not the career for you, that's totally fine. The important idea is that there are many careers out there, and we want to expose you to what it's like to be an engineer so you could decide whether engineering is the right path for you. And there are really three things. If you decide to go into engineering, there are three things that you're going to learn about or figure out as you go along. And one is which field of engineering you want to work in: chemical engineering, civil engineering, environmental, mechanical. Not only the field, but Priti mentioned the industry. Do you want to work in the computer industry? Do you want to work in construction industry? Do you want to work in the medical profession? There are many different industries. And then the last thing she mentioned was a function of engineer. Do you want to be an engineer that's designing things? Do you want to be an engineer that's testing things? Do you want to be an engineer that is in sales? So there really are so many options of an engineering career, and we're planning on exposing you to that as we go along. And today's class is really split up into three things. First part is introductions. We're going to have introductions. The second part today is going to give you an overview of the course and using Canvas. And then the third part is we're going to start talking about all the different fields of engineering. So today we're going to get to know each other, learn about what this course is all about, and then also start going into learning about engineering. Thanks, Priti.
Yeah. Carl?
Sorry, I just saw a cat run by Evan's screen. Yeah, I mean, I think all of those things that this class kind of helps provide. Were you going to talk a little bit about the book?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
pulled it up. So yeah.
Okay, I'll let you talk about the book then.
Okay. So that's kind of a little overview of the class. A big part of the class is our book. It's the 5th edition of Studying Engineering. And we use the book in parallel with what you're learning in the class. But the book is all about preparing you to succeed in pursuing your degree. And it doesn't matter what field you're in. It talks about topics about like how to manage your time, how to set your schedule, how to what kind of learner you are, how you should study. All of those things are a part of this textbook. And so we are going to, every day of the 8 days here, we are going to be covering a chapter in this book. So we started already by Sunday yesterday, asking you to read chapter 2, which was about the engineering professions. So that you kind of came in today to the class having that as a background. And then we'll move forward. We'll go back to chapter 1 tonight, and then literally every night you'll have a homework assignment and a quiz from the book. So the book is available in the Cabrillo bookstore, and if you aren't able to get it right away, we provided a link to the 4th edition of the book. And folks have asked, is it okay if I use the 4th edition? And the answer is yes. There isn't much difference between them, but the page numbers are different. Some of the sections might be different in terms of how it's organized. However, the other thing is that we can't guarantee access to that online edition. It's somebody else who's posted that, and they could take it down at any time. So it's up to you, how you want to pursue it. But it is a big part of this course, and it really prepares you for being a successful student, no matter what degree you pursue. And it would be beneficial even in high school as well as college. So that's a big part of this class too. It just runs in parallel kind of at home, that you're working through the book, while in class we are pursuing all the different fields, industries, and functions of engineers.
Carl, why don't you add to that?
Yeah, I guess I really, really liked the book when I first read it. And I wish I had a book like that when I started learning about engineering. And one of the reasons is because it doesn't treat everyone as the same kind of student, the same kind of person with the same kind of interests. It basically says, no matter who you are sitting in this class, there is an engineer that is very similar to you, has similar interests, and they found their place in, the engineering community. And it's really like the book really helps you kind of reverse engineer yourself, learn about what works for you, what study techniques work for you, and realizing that just because that study technique works for a different person, you shouldn't expect it and you shouldn't be upset if it doesn't work for you. There are other ways there, the variety of ways that human beings can learn is just so vast. And, so be gentle with yourself when you do those kind of experiments from the book and you're like, wow, that really didn't work for me. Just note it and just realize like, oh, I better be aware of that. If I have a teacher that really relies on visual learning styles, I might want to look on YouTube and find other, or look for books or look for any other way of learning the information. There's no magic conduit to get it to you. So just always be willing to explore and find something that works for you.
I'd like to add something too, and it's partly to honor the first author of the book. The back of the book has a picture of him. His name is Ray Landis. He was the Dean of Engineering at Cal State LA. And what's really special about him is he realized that a lot of kids who went straight from high school to college and were really successful students in high school weren't necessarily successful as engineering students in college. And he developed nationally this type of course. Our Engineering 5 course was really visioned and developed by him. And many community colleges and universities throughout the country offer a course such as Engineering 5 now. And the reason that he felt that this course was important was two reasons. One is what Carl was speaking about, that you really have to learn about who you are and what your interest is and how to be a successful student, because just because you are a successful high school student doesn't mean you have to use those same skills. You may have to use different skills to be a successful college student. And he wanted to make sure that everybody who was coming in as a freshman in college in engineering succeeded and graduated in engineering. And the other thing is he felt that a lot of students who went into engineering didn't necessarily know what engineers do. They just heard from someone, oh, you're really good at math and science, you should be an engineer. And they went into engineering with not really knowing what engineering is. So the other piece of this course is really to understand what being an engineer is all about, so you could choose whether it's the field for you and which field is best. So we designed this course, and what Priti had said, it's really two courses kind of running parallel to the other. In our class, we are going to be exploring engineering, careers in engineering, industries, functions of an engineer, do hands-on projects. And running parallel is the textbook, which is really going to be self-reflection in engineering, but also just you and to be successful in any field. I mean, this textbook is called Studying Engineering, but it could have been called Studying Business, Studying Nursing, Studying whatever, without that first chapter or chapter 2 that you already read. So we hope that you gain a lot from this class and that you're successful in whatever path you take. And we are here for you. We still haven't even talked, we haven't introduced ourselves, but I think that's where we're going now, right, Priti?
Yeah.
Okay, so take it away.
Okay, so I guess I'm first, which kind of makes sense since I'm the newest addition to this team. So my name is Preeti Brahma, and I studied mechanical engineering undergraduate. And I have to tell you that all the things Joanne just said were true of me. So I randomly chose mechanical engineering, not knowing anything about it. Let me just start by saying, in my family, I was the first generation to go to college in America. And so we didn't even understand navigating how to go to college. And I was really lucky that I had some friends who had older siblings that knew what to do. Even from taking the SAT, like I didn't even know I had to do that. So then I got to my college. I went to Berkeley, and I got there undeclared, and didn't know what to do. And my dad is a mechanical engineer, and I was like, I love my dad so I'll just do mechanical engineering. That seems like where my dad and I are very similar. So maybe that's the right field for me. And so I actually applied. You had to apply to transfer to the engineering school, and I did. I thankfully, took a lot of math and took all the prereqs and all that. And I got in. And then, like, I was a year and a half into it, and I'm like, God, I hate this. What am I doing? Like, this is just not for me. I actually took a semester off and did what was called a co-op, and I went out and worked in industry as a student intern, but it was part of the educational program. So I didn't have to, like, it wasn't like I left school. They actually added it onto my transcript. Um, and then I realized, yeah, this is really not for me. And so I came back, I had one semester left, and I was like, I got to find something else. And I really wanted to do environmental engineering. So I took the rest of my senior classes related to something environmental. And I went on to get a master's in civil and environmental engineering. And so I went to UCLA for that. And I was there, and I kind of put myself out there a little bit, just kind of exploring what was happening on campus. And I was talking to my advisor, which I highly recommend, no matter where you are, talk to your academic advisors. Even if you're afraid. I was afraid. I walked in, I was like, I have nothing to talk about. So I just said, oh, I'm looking for a job. And he's like, oh, well, do you want to help my PhD student in my research lab? And I was like, sure, that's easy. I go to school, I work on campus. That makes life really easy. I don't have to go anywhere. So I did that. He kind of saw how I worked. And then he's like, well, would you be interested in pursuing a PhD? And I was like, me? Really? So, like, I literally went home and I mulled this over for like weeks. Like, me, I hadn't done particularly well at Berkeley. I didn't have stellar grades. But I was like, huh, that's interesting. And then I came back and I said, you know what? It's better I try and fail than not try at all. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll go for the PhD. So I stayed at UCLA. It took me, 6 years. I got my PhD in civil and environmental engineering. My work was in groundwater hydrology, looking at how contaminants pollute our groundwater and how they move around in there. And then I went on to work for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So, part of my graduate work was teaching, and I realized I really loved working with students. And I got this job at NOAA, which allowed me to continue working with students. And I was there for 8 years, worked my way through the Weather Service and then over to the Office of Education. And the whole time I was working with students, helping them pursue their graduate degrees in the NOAA sciences. And NOAA has, weather, remote sensing, oceanography, those kinds of things. And then I came back to teaching because I was really missing it. And I started with actually teaching environmental science at American University in Washington, D.C. before moving out here and teaching engineering at Napa Valley College and now at Cabrillo. And I've been at Cabrillo for a year. So here we are. That's my long story.
Carl, before we go on, okay, I want everybody to do a little stretching. The three of us are gonna talk a lot today, but we're also gonna have breakout rooms where you're gonna get to talk to each other and share too. So I'm just starting to feel that maybe we talked for a while already. So, and I'm gonna teach you some terms too. So when you stretch, and in engineering, if you take a piece of metal, or in this case, it's a pen, and you pull it, do you know what the technical engineering word for that is when you pull something? Shout it out.
Tension.
Tension, yes. So right now we're trying to put our bodies in tension. And I guess it's kind of difficult to put, what's the opposite of tension?
Compression.
Compression, yes. Great. I think it's kind of hard to put our bodies in compression, but anyway, we could try. And then how about twisting? What's the engineering or the technical word for twisting?
Torsion.
Torsion, awesome. So torsion. And How about this? What's this called? What am I doing right now? You guys? Bending. And there's no technical term for that. It's just bending. Okay. All right. And by the way, Prithvi and I met at an art camp. So you probably have heard networking is really good. And you just don't network in engineering or technical capacities, but you also network in regular life too. So she and I do this art camp every year. And about 3 years ago now, we met, and I learned that she was teaching engineering at Napa Valley. And when at Cabrillo, when we went into the COVID pandemic situation and we had to start teaching classes online. And by the way, in the fall, part classes are online and part are in person. And then in the spring, we'll be fully in person again. Anyway, when we went online, I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe Priti could start teaching at Cabrillo. So she's been here a couple of years now. Okay, Carl, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
And I met Carl at a party. A joint friend of ours named Marty was having a party, and Marty said, Joanne, I need you to meet Carl because I know he would be a great teacher. And then sure enough, Carl's been working here now for, is it 8 years, Carl? I don't know how many years.
9.
9. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Carl, introduce yourself.
So my name is Carl Ewald. I always introduce myself as a second generation engineer because my father was an engineer. And I think that, you know, a lot of engineering, well, growing up with my father, I think I realized that engineering and that mindset of engineering, while it does rely on a lot of math and science, is also the same impetus that, you know, allows kids to put together blocks and, you know, play video games and play, you know, it's like making stuff, and it's like recognizing patterns. And then when those, you know, when you discover what works, you just kind of repeat it. And then math and science allows us to do that much more efficiently, much more effectively, and to kind of share knowledge so we don't all have to figure it out on our own. So anyway, I kind of grew up with that engineering, you know, kind of mindset. And I lived in Southern California for the first 10 years of my life. And my dad worked in the space program. So there were nights I remember him kind of waking me up, and we go out to the driveway and you could see, you know, like a rocket, a missile launch or satellite launch or various things like that. So I have these kind of old memories of it. But as I was going through school, I kind of always knew I was heading towards engineering, but you know, I had a lot of other interests, and it was during the early 80s. It was when 8-bit video games were really 8-bit video games. And I got a little computer, and I decided I was going to kind of teach myself how to program video games. So when I was a freshman and sophomore in high school, I spent a lot of time, like, I lived in the country. So, you know, it was back when there was 3 channels of TV and no internet. So, you know, you either played outside, went into the woods, or, you know, like went into the fields, or you learned how to program your computer. So I started programming computers. And then I got, you know, as I went a little farther in high school, I got a little deeper into the science and everything. And I ended up going to UC Davis as an aeronautical engineer. I was really interested in remote control models at that point. I was building them, although they're harder to find places to fly. So I spent like maybe 10 times as much building them as flying them. In any case, I started at Davis in aeronautical, and I continued for a while, and I started to take classes, and I took a class called materials engineering. And I discovered, I don't know, it's interesting when if you understand like atoms and how they interact together in kind of a chemistry way, like in watery environments, aqueous environments, like material science is kind of, you know, how do atoms join together in the solid state? And I got really into that, and I took a job as an undergraduate working in that professor's lab, working for a graduate student. And it was one of those strange things where, you know, you wouldn't think like, oh, video game programming and material science would come together, but it was a time when computers were just becoming ubiquitous. It was the 80s, and you know, you didn't have them everywhere and not every science was using them. So I had this weird opportunity to basically take the computer skills and the hard science skills and bring them together. And I started to write computer models to try to figure out what the experiments would do before I did the experiment. And I spent basically about 8 years kind of focusing on that, writing computer models. And you have to understand, like some of the experiments I did, it would take you a week of like work to make the sample. And then you would have to, you know, process it. And so if you could get a computer program that would allow you to have some insight into what was going to happen without spending that extra week of work, like it was really valuable. And anyway, I took those two skills and I brought them together, and I ended up switching from aeronautical engineering to material science and engineering. And as you will discover pretty early on in engineering, but not too much, like not so early you need to worry about it quite yet, you'll find that the set of classes that different engineers take are different. So because I had gone so far in aeronautical, it was actually unit-wise, it was cheaper for me to get a double degree in mechanical engineering and material science and engineering than to get either one. So I ended up with 2 degrees. And then I ended up staying at Davis and working in that lab and getting my master's and my PhD. And it was all in this domain of trying to write computer models that would give me accurate, meaningful, like insight into how those experiments might play out. And then I finished up school right when the dot-com boom and the internet was really taking off. So again, like I took one of these complete right turns and ended up in the computer industry. And I took those computer skills and just applied them to a different domain. And I worked in that industry for about 12 years. And then like Joad said, I had been teaching when I was at Davis, and I actually taught at Napa Valley College where Preeti is back in the 90s. And then I was kind of ready to try something different and ended up back at Cabrillo teaching engineering. And I haven't practiced that speech in a while. So I think that's kind of my experience. And I share it because I want you to understand that, like, you know, you can meander along the way a little bit, you know, and it's good to do a little bit of that and realize that different fields really have a different feel. They're very, very different. It's, you know, it's like they have similarity, but explore and pay attention to what you like to do. And if something is really not what you like, you know, I really don't like doing this kind of thing, take note of that. It's not a big deal. There's lots of things that you'll find that you will like. So I think that's kind of my story.
Okay, my turn. So you can tell we are professors, huh? We like to profess. We tend to like to talk a lot. And I think what we'll do, Priti and Carl, is after I introduce myself, we'll take a break. And then we'll come back and do the next activity where you guys get to talk to each other. Okay, so you just have to get through me now. So I grew up in New York in a blue-collar family. My dad never finished grammar school. My mom went to a 2-year commercial high school, which is a high school designed a long time ago to be a secretary. So my parents were not educated. I grew up in a blue-collar area, and I spent most of my childhood playing sports, doing like craft and art projects. And I did a lot of fixing things. And I did really love school. I always loved math and science, especially math. My dad worked for Con Edison in New York, which is the equivalent of PG&E here. And when a family would have a gas leak in their house, they would call up here PG&E, there Con Edison, and my dad would be the guy who would come out and determine what the problem is and fix it. And he could fix everything in our house. And he kind of taught us that too. I remember having this white canvas bag. I had my own toolbox, my own tool canvas bag when I was growing up. And I remember that my bicycle was upside down more than right side up, because my dad would like get different parts and put them together and make bikes for us. So that is my background. I really did love math. And as I went through school, I was really good at it. And I want to add that you do not have to be a math stud to be an engineer. In fact, you could dislike math. You could even not be good at math and still be an excellent engineer. We've had a number of students at Cabrillo who maybe failed Calc 1 3 times, and they're working as engineers now. We are going to use math when we're engineers, but we don't have to use sophisticated math. So even though you have to take calculus and differential equations, maybe 80% of engineers are only doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and algebra. So don't stress out if math is not your thing. It doesn't determine whether you're going to be a good engineer or not. But anyway, I really liked math. And there are a few times that I understood math when my classmates didn't. And in 4th grade, my teacher asked me to teach long division to the class. And then in 8th grade, my teacher asked me to teach percents, because those are 2 subjects that people were having difficulty with. And a lot of times what you're exposed to in your life, you think of are options for you to be in careers. And I never knew what engineering was, but I knew what teachers did in math. So I basically wanted to be a math teacher as I went through elementary school and then high school. And this is the same with you guys. We're exposing engineering to you because you may not have exposure to engineering in your regular life. And a lot of people that grow up in my environment that maybe was, lower, I don't know, maybe poor or lower middle class, you're really only exposed to teachers and nurses and doctors. And I guess maybe you might know what a lawyer does or something you're exposed on TV. But it's really important for you to get exposed to these different fields so you could determine what you like and what you don't like. Anyway, so I wanted to be a math teacher. And by the time I got to junior and high school, I went to an all-girls Catholic school, which I really love. And actually, as a Cabrillo engineering student, a teacher now, we've brought our camps, our engineering girls camps to that high school in New York. That's been really fun. But anyway, most of the girls are going to be teachers or nurses. And I felt like I really wanted to do something different. I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. And because I had that little like crafty part of me, and my cousin's husband was an architect, I decided to learn about what architecture was. So it was kind of a class like this for architecture, and it was offered at the local college. So I did exactly what many of you, a number of you are high school students, then you're coming to a college to take a class to learn about a career. And I did that for architecture. And I learned that I really didn't like it. It was too arty, too subjective. I like more practical things, and I wanted more math and science. So someone suggested to me, why don't you go into civil engineering? Because they design structures and buildings and bridges and things like architects do, but it's more practical and more math and science. So that's what I did. I applied to college. I got in. I was studying civil engineering. And as I was going through civil engineering, which is a very big field of engineering, just like mechanical and electrical engineering, I learned about a specialty in civil engineering called geotechnical engineering, which is all about soil, studying soil to see how strong it is and see if you could build things on it. And I really loved it. And in New York, in order to be a geotechnical engineer, you needed to go to get a master's degree. So I went to the University of Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C., and I got my master's degree. And while I was there, well, I should say first that while I was getting my undergraduate degree, I lived for a summer up in Maine, and I worked at the University of Maine doing some research on soil samples. And I didn't enjoy doing the research. So when I got to graduate school, I was asked, do I want to do research or do I want to teach? And I certainly picked teaching. So I started teaching when I was a beginning graduate student, and I loved it, just as I did when I taught percents and long division way back. So I determined at that point that I wanted to teach engineering, but I wanted to get experience as an engineer first. So I worked as a civil engineer, geotechnical engineering engineer for 7 years. I worked as a surveyor and a survey crew. I worked in consulting, which when you're going to build something, you have to hire a consultant to analyze the soil and determine whether something's buildable and then figure out the strength of the soil and design the foundation. So I worked in consulting. And then I also worked in construction. I worked for this company down in Ventura that's worldwide that does soil improvement to make sure that places are buildable. And so I worked in surveying and consulting and in construction. And when I moved out to California, I started learning about the community college program where the emphasis was on teaching and not research. Because most professors at universities, their emphasis is doing research. Unless you go to a specific undergraduate, a focused university and undergraduate, which is really more caring about the teaching. And one of the days, a week from this Wednesday, I'm going to be with you talking about engineering education, and I'll talk to you a lot about different kinds of universities that are out there. For those of you who are high school students that determine you want to go straight to a university, or for those of you in high school that decide to come to a community college, or those of you that are in college right now and at a community college and want to eventually transfer to a university and determine where you want to go. But community colleges is really focused on teaching, so that there's a lot of hands-on learning. And I really love that. So I worked in engineering for 7 years, started teaching part-time at a bunch of different community colleges in the Bay Area. And then I landed the full-time position at Cabrillo, and that was in the fall of '95. So that was about 26 years ago. So I've been the chair of the engineering department for 25 years at Cabrillo, and I love what I do. Not only do I enjoy the teaching aspect, but I enjoy the aspect of working with students one-on-one to find the best fit engineering field, industry, function, and university to determine which would be the best fit university to go to. So I really love what I do. While we've been at Cabrillo, we've also had 4 different federal grants where we've built up programs. We have an engineering abroad program. We have middle school girls and boys in engineering summer camps. We have this amazing STEM center where students work with others. Anyway, I just really love what I do. So even though I came from a family that wasn't educated, I feel like the reason I got to where I am is from, oh God, I'm getting a little teary-eyed. The reason why I am where I am in life is because of my education. So I really feel strongly about education and figuring out what you really want to do, because your life, you could move up the socioeconomic level and do really great things. The last thing I want to say about the Cabrillo Engineering Program is we really believe that engineering is a helping profession, helping communities and helping the environment. And that's a big part of what we do in our engineering program at Cabrillo. Okay, so Priti or Carl, do you want to add something else before? Oh, I want to add something else. So you know now that Priti's background is mechanical engineering, environmental engineering, and civil engineering. Carl's background is aerospace engineering, mechanical engineering, materials engineering, and software engineering. And my background is civil and geotechnical engineering. So just from the 3 of us, we covered about 7 fields of engineering. And then as Priti mentioned, we are bringing in engineers to speak who are going to have many different fields of engineering too. So not only in this course are you going to learn from the 3 of us, but you're going to learn from other engineers. And then all of you may know some engineers as well. And you could bring in some information from them as well, so that by the time you leave this course, you're going to be exposed to a lot of fields of engineering. Okay. Priti, want to add anything? Carl, want to add anything? Otherwise, we're going to do a break.
Nothing at this point.
Priti?
No, I think we're good. We should do a break. And Carl, you'll be back on Wednesday, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Carl's going to take off now, and he's going to be teaching on Wednesday, and he's going to cover the electrical engineering, software engineering, and computer engineering. So when we come back from break, I mentioned that today's class has 3 parts: introductions, course overview, and then we're exploring engineering. So far, you've heard from the three of us in terms of introductions. When we come back from the break, everybody's going to be introducing themselves in a group. And then we're going to talk about the course overview and then explore engineering.
Mate, can you give us 3 fields of engineering?
And say them loud.
Civil, mechanical, and environmental.
Okay, so not only are you going to hear the fields of engineering and those ones you probably heard, I'm going to start teaching you the abbreviations for each. And actually, let me get these, I like these paragraph marks, but I know a lot of people hate them. So let me get them off. Okay, civil, mechanical, and environmental. Okay, so notice the older fields of engineering have abbreviations that are just the first letter and then a capital E. So civil engineering is a pretty old field of engineering, and so is mechanical. So they have CE and ME. Environmental is not that old. So it doesn't have the EE term because something else has the EE term. Instead it has ENVE. Okay, so I want you to get comfortable with this. And you could write these down if you want. Or like I said, I'm going to save this file and I'll post it to our module. Okay, next group. Oh, so civil engineering is very broad. So no, I'm going to give it away if I start saying some subcategories. I'll come back later. Let's make the list first. And then I'll come back and talk more about them. Okay, next group.
Room 7, Andy, Leah, or Mel?
We put down electrical, aerospace, and industrial.
Okay. All right. So notice who got the EE, an older field of engineering than the environmental, because environmental used to be included under civil engineering. It still is a subcategory of civil engineering, but it's become most popular now, and now it's here. Electrical engineers, aerospace, and I want to say that this is aerospace engineering, but it's also aero, and I told you I'm not a very good speller, aeronautical engineering. Okay, and we'll talk more about them in a little bit. And then this one is, and I'll type it just because some of you may never have heard about this field of engineering, industrial engineering. Okay, next group.
Room 6, Maddie, Marco, Moises, and Ricky.
The 3 we came up with were biomedical, chemical, and software.
Okay, biomed, chemical. Now, could chemical be CE?
No.
No, because it has civil. So chemi. So you said biomedical, chemical, and what?
Software.
Software. And software really doesn't have abbreviation. I mean, I guess we could do something like this, but it's not really technical, how you would say it, software engineering. And software engineering doesn't have SE because there's another field of engineering that's older than software engineering that has the SE. Okay, next group.
Room 5, Brooke, Evan, Nick, or Richard.
Our group, we said, let me find some that haven't been said. Audio, thermo engineering, and nuclear.
Okay, so rather than using audio engineering, because audio engineer is usually the person in the back of a concert hall that's moving all the equipment. They're really not a degreed engineer at all. They're really a technician. Can anybody think of another word that could describe an engineer that is dealing with audio?
Sound engineer? Oh, it's acoustical engineering.
Acoustical, yeah. Acoustical engineer. And notice it doesn't have AE because that's aero. So a sound engineer or an audio engineer is really, it's like calling a person who drives a train an engineer. They're not really an engineer by degree. A sound engineer and a audio engineer, they're not engineers by degree. They're just a person that operates equipment. Okay, I'm sorry. What else did you say besides acoustical engineering?
Thermo and nuclear engineering.
Nuclear engineering, and that's a very old field of engineering. And I'll spell it out just in case somebody forgets what NE is. It's not a very popular field of engineering, but again, the last class next week, we'll talk about job prospects for different fields. And what's the third one?
Thermo engineering.
Okay. So there really isn't a field of engineering called thermo. You can't get a degree in thermo engineering. It's really somebody who works with thermo heat systems, and that's either a mechanical engineer or a chemical engineer. So sometimes we use, let me just stop sharing for a moment so I could see everybody. We talked about there being branches of engineering. There are industries engineers could work in, and then their functions, their job descriptions. A thermo engineer is really what industry, an engineer, whatever kind of engineer it is, whether it's a civil engineer, an environmental or a chemical or mechanical engineer, they are working on thermo systems. And that would be more considered an industry that they're working in. It's not a field of engineering. Sometimes I think it's hard to distinguish between the field of engineering and the industry and the function. And we're covering it today, but I would love to get a lot of questions on that. You know, you go to a party and you meet somebody and they say, oh, I'm a thermo engineer. And you really have no idea which field of engineering they have their degree in. You could guess, but the next question would be, oh, what field of engineering did you get your degree in? Because if you want to work on thermo systems, you want to know which degree to get. But a lot of, and because Pretty and Carl and I are engineering educators, we know the distinctions between these. Many times you meet people and they're like, oh, I'm a thermo engineer. And you're like, well, now you know, you guys know, they didn't get a degree in thermo engineering. They got a degree in something. And you could find out what that is. Okay, but we want you to be able to distinguish between the degree they got, the industry they work in, and what their job title is. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. So acoustical, nuclear, do you have something else on the list that wasn't said yet besides the thermo engineering?
We had structural. Would that work?
Structural, and that's where our SE comes out. Structural engineering. Okay. Okay, next group.
Room 4, Cole, Isaac, Kai, and Tim.
Manufacturing engineering, computer engineering, and optical engineering.
Great. And we're going to need to
does
talk more.
microfluidics count as a category or
No, no, you can't get a degree in microfluidics. And actually, you'd have to tell me what you're even talking about. And then I could tell you which field of engineering it's in. It's definitely an industry, and it's definitely a fine industry, a small industry. It might be something that someone's doing their research on as their PhD. So manufacturing engineering, computer engineering, and optical engineering. And again, after we make this list, we're going to talk more about them. Okay, next group.
Room 3, Diego, Noah, Peter, and River.
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys really don't like. Hang on a second. I'm going to make this in columns. Okay, what's the next group?
We said, let's see, where is it? Agricultural, construction, and geotech.
Okay, construction. I'm going to just spell it out. Construction engineer, construction, and geotech. And another, the more lay name for that is a soils engineer. So I would call myself, or I used to be, a soils engineer. Geotechnical is more the formal word for it. Okay, next group.
Room 2, Aaron, Adrian, Jaden, and Madison.
And don't stress out if you're running out of engineering fields, you know?
Okay. So we have material engineer.
Great.
And
And it's called Mat E, materials engineer.
We got marine. Would that be like submarines and stuff like that?
Yep. And it's also referred to as an ocean engineer. And sometimes it's referred to as a naval engineer. I'm just going to keep marine and ocean.
And then there's a question I had. So you know how in the computer computer engineering, there's been like some quantum parts that have been made, like really, like theoretical kind of stuff. Could
Yeah.
you say a quantum engineer? Is that a thing? No.
No,
Okay.
again, it would be an industry that you're working in, and an electrical engineer could work in quantum. There's also something called quantum mechanics, which relates quantum with mechanical things. So no, it's more of an industry.
Okay. Neurological.
Oh my God, no.
Dang it.
But let's do this instead. So a group said biomedical engineering, and I'm going to say bioengineer.
Okay.
Okay. And I am going to mention this right now. There are two types of bioengineers. Okay. They're either a biomedical engineer or they're a genetic engineer. Let's see. I can't, I want to stay on one line. So I'm going to just stop for a minute and look at you guys again. So bioengineering is still new. And when I say new, I mean 20 years, which you may think is old, but it's not really, it's still new. So bioengineering can be divided up into two different groups. Either you're making medical devices like orthotics, prosthetics, pacemakers, insulin supply, stents, angioplasty. Maybe you don't even know what all these terms are, but hopefully you knew one of them. Basically, it's something you can touch that either goes inside the body or outside. All the machines that are used at an eye doctor, all the machines that are in doctors' offices and hospitals, they are all biomedical devices. If you think about it, it's really a mechanical device that has circuits in it for electricity and software, but it's called a biomedical device. And in the past, a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, and a programmer would work together to make these. But it's become so huge that now you could get a degree, a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering. So biomedical engineering is devices. The other type of bioengineer is what I'm going to refer to as a genetic engineer. You've heard of genetically modified foods, right? A tomato that looks great and tastes great. They're really, I was going to screwing with, they're really doing something to the DNA, right? So they're dealing with genetics. That's more theoretical, where the other one is more applied. But because bioengineering is so new, universities sometimes call their degree bioengineering, and you don't know if it's more towards genetics or more towards medical devices. You have to go in. And the reason why is because the universities don't know what their bioengineering program is going to be like in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So they're giving it a generic term like bioengineering, but you have to look to see what it is. Now, state schools, the California state schools, tend to be more hands-on. They are more focused on application. They have biomedical engineering programs. San Jose State's one, Cal Poly's one. Many times I'm going to give you examples of the local schools in California just because they're right at the top of my head, but we will be able to do searches for universities throughout the whole country. UCSC, a more research-focused school, does not have biomedical. It's bioengineering. It's more the genetic thing, more relying on biology than on mechanics. Okay, and now I want to check in with you. Again, I'm talking a lot and I need to get, should I slow down? Am I doing fine? You know, give me a thumbs up. Is everything okay? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
What
Isaac?
about robotics and mechatronics?
Great. Okay. So has your group come up yet?
No.
Good. Okay.
But
So
no. His group has come up. We still had one more group to go.
Okay. We have to do one more group, Isaac, and then the groups could come up and say others because that is one. Good job. Okay. Next and last group, I guess.
Is room 1, Andrew, Leo, Max, and Oliver.
Okay. Okay. 1 second here. All right. I guess
So I'm going to write genetic engineering down. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
We got agricultural engineering.
Okay. And we got that listed already.
Is that in there? Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Architectural engineering.
Great. And that's ARC-E.
We have network engineering.
That's under computer engineering.
Okay. Sustainability.
Okay. Hang on a second.
Sorry, I'm
Actually, I'm sorry, no, network engineering is under software.
okay.
Well, it's actually under computer science. So let me mention computer science.
I think
Everybody
you
knows
have
computer.
it.
No, I don't. I have computer engineering and I have software engineering. I don't have computer science. Computer science is software engineering plus networking. So you could see it's more broad. If you want to be a programmer, you go into software engineering. If you want to be a programmer, but you're also interested in how to network computers, that's more computer science. And I'm listing computer science as an engineering discipline. Okay, so you might wonder, why is she doing this? Computer science has the word science in it, but it's not science. It's not some pure thing like gravity or math or light, the way light travels or the way blood goes through your system. It's not a science. Computer science is an engineering discipline. And at universities, computer science is in the College of Engineering, unless you go to a liberal arts school and they might have computer science and may not have engineering. So computer science is broader than software engineering in that it's software and networking. Do you guys get it, why it's not science? You know, it's engineering, really.
Yeah, but then aren't there like separate like IT programs?
Yeah, but then it's not, if it's IT, it may not be. So let's put IT here. Because an IT program might be a technician program and not an engineering discipline. Right? People who work in IT may have IT is really an industry. Let me come back. IT is really an industry. I work in IT. You work in IT. Do you want to work in IT? It is an industry. IT hires electrical engineers, computer engineers, software engineers, and they hire technicians. You get it? IT is not an engineering degree. It's more an industry you work in. Thumbs up? Ask questions.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, ask questions. And some of it still might be foggy to you, and that's fine. That's why we have 8 days, right? This is just an introduction. Okay, I'm going to go back to the screen. All right.
Okay. So we did architectural. We also had sustainability engineering. Is that
Sustainability is within every engineering field. And typically, you know, you could get minors in sustainability, but you could get a minor in sustainability whether you major in civil or mechanical or electrical or aero or anything. It's basically designing. It's a big part of engineering in that you're designing things that are sustainable for the environment, for people, for et cetera, but it's not an engineering degree. However, Andrew, there is, it was Andrew who was speaking, right?
Yep.
There is an energy engineering degree, in case you were thinking about sustainability in terms of energy. There is an energy engineering degree at Berkeley.
Okay.
So that could be something you get.
We also had petroleum engineering.
Yep, good. And that's an old field again, so it has the PE.
Nice.
Okay, so now every group has spoke, and now we need to find out, actually, why don't we do it this way? Would you put in the chat any other engineering fields that your group thought about? I'll start with mechatronics. Well, let me just wait to give you a moment. Maybe one person in each group. It doesn't matter to me. Just put it in the chat and you could just hit them, type it, hit it. Okay, materials we did already. Automotive, we didn't put that one down yet. Put down mechatronics. Data, well, data is more of an industry. Maybe bioinformatics is an engineering discipline that combines bio and data. There's data in everything. There's not a data engineering degree per se. It's more that you might be involved in that. Construction, somebody wrote already. So far we have to add automotive and mechatronics. How about, think of the different, there are 5 different types of engineering materials. Think about that. What are the 5 different types of engineering materials? Just call it out. Call it out.
Oh, plastics,
Plastics. Plastics
alloys.
falls on, wait. Plastics falls under polymers. Polymers are glues, plastics, elastics. So polymer. So there are polymer engineers, and you could get a degree in polymer engineering. Isaac, what was the second one you said?
Alloys.
Alloys is a metal, right? Metals can be pure or they can be alloys. So material, I'm sorry, metallurgical engineering is another field of engineering. Can you think of another material that engineers do and use in building besides plastic and metal?
Fibers.
What?
Like fibers, like carbon fiber.
Carbon fiber, right. And what is carbon fiber? Do you know what it is? It's made out of carbon, right? Or fiber optics or glass fiber. Do you know what kind of material, what big category that is? It's a ceramic.
Oh,
Glasses are
got
all
it.
ceramic. So you have ceramic engineers too. Okay, so let me go back to the list.
How about
Okay, somebody
concrete?
wrote them. Say it again. So hang on a second. Let me go
Sorry.
back to the list. So I'm writing automotive engineering. I'm writing polymer engineering. I'm writing ceramic engineers. I'm writing this is a long one, metallurgical. I think I spelt it right. Okay, it says, well, I think there's 2 L's, but maybe not. But let's do mechatronics. So oh, where'd it go? Oh, it went over here. Hang on a sec. Well, let me write it here because it is going to be a long thing. Oh, hang on, I think something. Okay, mechatronics is equal to, it's basically the same as robotics. It's equal to mechanical engineering plus electrical engineering plus programming. So I'll say software. I'm going to use this, right? Software engineers. So mechatronics is a field of engineering now, and there are 3 schools. Chico State has a mechatronics program. CSUMB, CSU Monterey Bay will have a mechatronics program in a couple of years. There's a Cal State down south, I think it's Cal State San Marcos or Cal State.
It's Channel Islands.
Channel Islands, great, that has a mechatronics program. So if you want a broader engineering discipline where you're combining mechanical and electrical and programming, you could go into mechatronics. Okay, I am going to move.
But like UCSC has a robotics program. Is robotics basically more theoretical or?
Yeah, and it's not a bit accredited. So yes, UCSC does have, oh, I should put an E here, mechatronics engineering or robotics engineering. So you're right, there are 4 universities. There's CSU Channel Islands, Chico State, CSU Monterey Bay will have one soon. And yes, UCSC has a robotics engineering program. It's a little more theoretical. A lot of the programs that come out of UCSC are based more on science than application. And the way I could determine that is by looking at the courses. I see that they're not giving you a lot of foundation courses in engineering, but rather giving you a lot more foundation courses in programming. So most of UCSC's engineering programs are more focused on programming. So if you compare UCSC's electrical engineering program to the electrical engineering program at another place in the state, you'll see that there's more heavily emphasis on programming courses than on the electrical engineering classes. Okay, we got to be missing some because we have, let's see, 5, 10, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25. We're over 30. We might have covered them all. Oh, food engineering. Food engineering is all about packaging. So ag engineering has to do with the whole agricultural process, but food engineering has to do with the packaging. Making cans of orange juice from oranges. Packaging, when you go to the store, you're not buying this full chicken hanging from a hook. You're getting it cut up and it's all in packaging. That's all food engineering. Okay, I'm going to save this. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And wow, we're at a 1:15 already. Okay, any other fields of engineering? Oh, safety engineering. Safety usually falls under industrial engineering, and ergonomics falls under industrial. So let me go back to sharing the screen. And so civil engineering has to do with water. It has to do with structures. It has to do with water, has to do with, sanitation. There's sanitation engineering that has to do with cleaning up wastes. Okay. Water structures. So civil engineering is very broad. I'm going to show you some ways that we could categorize them. Aerospace engineering could be used designing anything that moves through a fluid. So golf balls is aerospace engineering. Airplanes that move through air is aerospace engineering. Spacecraft is aerospace engineering. Boats is aerospace engineering. Industrial engineering is all about organization and production. It's making things cost efficient, but it also deals with ergonomics. Oh boy. Okay, ergonomics.
Oh, ERGO, ergonomics, NOMICS.
Okay, ergonomics and safety, because they're all, industrial engineers are all involved in the process that something is made, the impact on people, organization. Biomedical, we already talked about. Chemical engineering, and again, we're going to talk about all these in more detail. Chemical engineers are more about scaling up, making big chemical. A chemist makes a small quantity of something, and chemical engineers make bigger quantity and get it in production. Software, acoustics, this is important. This has to do with structural engineering or acoustical, or more music equipment.
What about automation engineering?
Is that robotics?
Well, it's typically when you automate something. So you're taking a mechanical machine and you're automating it, which means you're putting circuitry in there, you're putting programming in there. So it's not really a field of engineering. But let me go back to acoustical. So acoustical, you might be interested in being an acoustical engineer working in concert halls. You know, it's more a structural engineering kind of thing. Or you might be an acoustical engineer working more on musical equipment. And there's a company in Scotts Valley that does musical equipment. United Equipment. I have to think about it. But even though we live in a small town, there are engineering companies in Santa Cruz County. Structural engineering, manufacturing is all about making something. So it's working on a factory line, making sure everything's working. Computer engineering has to do, am I going too fast or am I okay?
You're going fast, but there's some stuff in the chat that people have put.
Okay, let me keep going and then I'll come back to the chat.
Okay.
Computer engineers is more about hardware, the stuff inside that you could touch, a motherboard, chips, where software engineers are the programs. Optical mechatronics, this is all about managing wastes. And this is it's partly really environmental engineering. I mean, there's a new community that went in on Freedom Boulevard a number of years ago. It's called Parkhurst Terrace. And when they designed the homes there's not a lot of homes. They had to make sure that they were managing their own wastes and managing their own water. And so this is a sustainable design. Ag engineering has all to do with ag equipment, irrigation, anything having to do with ag. Construction engineering, geotechnical I talked about that already. Materials, marine. This is kind of like almost like it's a specialty of aerospace engineering, because marine and ocean, they're designing things that are going through a fluid. Genetic is more about DNA. I'm not sure about RNA. I haven't taken bio in a long time. Architectural engineering is like structural engineering, but it's more arty. It's more about how it looks than whether it could stand up. Petroleum, automotive engineering. This is a specialty of mechanical engineering. Polymer, food. Okay, let me save this and now let me go to the chat. What else is in the chat? Welding, that's a technician job. It's not an engineering job. But if you're a mechanical engineer, it would be really helpful to take a welding class. Agricultural, pharmaceutical, that is an industry. They're not, pharmaceutical is an industry that a chemical engineer could work in. So a chemical engineer might be designing all the pharmaceutical equipment, not equipment, pharmaceutical drugs that are in the pharmaceutical industry. Got that? Whoever said Illy and Max. So pharmaceutical is an industry that you work in. I don't know what commercial engineering is. I don't know what you mean. What do you mean? Commercial engineering a thing. What does that mean, Oliver? Oliver?
Or maybe just like the construction of like ads or whatever, or like the way brands design their, I don't know, logos and stuff.
Yeah, that's more of a marketing kind of thing, or graphic design, or maybe even industrial technology, industrial designers, how things look and how they market it. You could work in marketing. You get an engineering degree and work in marketing. Survey engineering, surveying. Yeah, that's yeah, right, Marco. So that is under, so it's actually called, surveying is under civil engineering. So I'm going to write surveying up here. However, CSU Fresno State has a degree in surveying. It used to be called surveying engineering, but it's called geomatic engineering. So it's surveying, the new name for surveying engineering. And that is a field that needs a lot of people, and not a lot of people go into it. Okay, I think I'm going to stop here. I think you're getting an idea. And fire protection, where do you think that's under? Chemical engineering. Again, there's a fire protection 2-year degree. Fire protection engineering. You know what? I think Long Beach State has it. So I'm going to list it. Fire protection. I don't even have an abbreviation for it. I think Long Beach State has a 4-year degree in it, but a lot of people that go into it become firefighters. Okay, I'm going to stop making a list. Are there any last questions you have about this list? No. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. And so we did products. Now I'm going to open up the categories. I want to show you which ones are connected to others. So under civil engineering, these 5 are the broad categories of engineering: civil, mechanical, electrical, chemical, and industrial. And underneath those categories, these are really the specialties. So structural, you could choose to get a bachelor's degree in structural engineering, architectural engineering, geotechnical, environmental. Oh, we didn't mention biological. Biological engineering has to do with water systems, so we should put that on the list as well. So I'll write it down now, and I know I'll add it later. And UC Davis has a biological engineering field. So there's 3 bioengineerings, but biological is definitely separate. Ag. And then mechanical, aero, ocean, marine. Electrical, computer engineering, software engineering. chemical engineering and materials. And the reason that materials engineering is put under chemical is because in order to understand how a material behaves, you have to know what its chemistry is. And we're going to cover all these things in depth in different classes coming up. You're just trying to get an overview, a broad overview right now. Industrial is really industrial, and then there's manufacturing. But notice I color coded some of them. So mechatronics goes under mechanical engineering and electrical because it combines them. Robotics, same thing, and they're really synonyms. Agricultural engineering goes under mechanical engineering, civil engineering, and chemical. So you could go into any of these fields of engineering if you want to be an agricultural engineer or work in agriculture. Manufacturing is mechanical and industrial, and nuclear is electrical and chemical. And then under chemical is also biomedical. I have to move something. Biological engineering goes under biological and, under civil and chemical. Did I forget to put biomedical engineering here? Does anybody see it? I don't see it.
I see it
You do? Where?
under the civil category.
That's biological.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I forgot to put in biomedical engineering. So I need to add that biomed. Where, now that you know what biomedical engineering, which category is it in? Is it in civil?
Nope.
No. Is it in mechanical? Yes, it's a mechanical.
Yeah.
A biomedical device is a mechanical device. Does it have electricity in it? Yes.
Yeah.
So it's under electrical. Does it have to do with chemistry or biomedical? Not
Yeah.
really.
Oh,
Not
I
really.
guess.
Not really.
But one thing, it seems like bioengineering
Yeah.
seems like it. Other places it would just be considered biochemistry.
Yes, actually, we should add a biochemical engineering degree. UCSC has biochemical, so I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going back to this list because we did leave some things out. So there is biochemical engineering. What else did I leave out? I left out biological. And then what I should have done, so I think we pretty much have a complete list unless I think of something the rest of the day. So I'm going to post this on our today's class. So I'm going under share, but I did notice that I missed biomedical is not here, and I'll add some of the others. But you could see that there's an overlap. So one of the options, and this gets to the engineering education part, you're going to decide whether you want to get a bachelor's degree in a broad field of engineering, or do you want to get something more specialized? And we'll talk about that more then. Okay. So now I'm going back. Hopefully you guys are okay with me continuing to go. Because now we have like 20 minutes left. Okay, shoot. All right. I am going to show you some things that I have posted here. So this one, disciplines. And what I posted and this comes from the federal government's Bureau of Labor Statistics, where they list different fields of engineering and what each type of engineer does. And all 30 are in here, but the bigger categories are here. So you can go through these on your own to get a better feel for what these fields of engineering are. Okay, who is just speaking?
Is there an electrical engineering that focuses on like electronics for like space and aircraft?
Yes. So when you get an BS degree in EE, electrical engineering, the degree is electrical and electronic degree, and then you would want to work in the aerospace industry. You have to start understanding whether it's the degree or the industry. So let's keep moving, because now I'm moving into industries. And this is a document that our department put together that is listing, just it takes some time. So it says every business is classified into different industries. And I remember Evan used the word sector on the products that they make and the markets they cater to. These industries are classified on their specialties, which are based on the goods and the services they provide. While there are companies which belong to only one industry and provide industry-specific goods or services, there are also huge companies called conglomerates which cater to multiple industries. I went to India and looked at some engineering companies, and there was this huge company there that was involved in so many different industries. Okay, so the arrow, and I want you to read through all this, because again, you want to put in as much time as you can into this class, because you're learning about the career right now in a very short, different careers in engineering in a very short period of time, which is amazing for you to learn this much stuff. So you want to read through some of this, because there's no reason for me to go through all this, because different industries are going to be interesting to different people. So there's aero, transportation industry, the computer industry, telecommunications. You could be a mechanical, electrical, a computer engineer, a software engineer who works in the telecommunication industry, agricultural industry, construction industry, education industry, pharmaceuticals. Lily, was it you? Somebody said pharmaceutical engineering. No, it's not an engineering discipline. It's an industry. Food industry, healthcare, hospitality. I mean, hotels, huge hotel chains hire engineers, industrial engineers. Entertainment, sports, recreation, news and media, energy. I could go on. There's more and more. I'm only 3/4 of the way through this page. But this is a way to start getting comfortable with the different industries that hire engineers too. So you might be more comfortable saying, I want to design computer chips and I want to work in the aerospace industry, right? So you know what product you want, you know what industry you want to work in, and now we have to figure out which degree you want to get. Does everybody get that? Should I stop sharing for a moment? I just want to look at faces. So you might say, let's give another example. I want to work on sustainable building of homes with renewable energy, right? So you know the product and you know the industry. You have to decide which field of engineering. I want to work on music equipment, the sound part of it. Do you get a mechanical degree? Do you get an acoustical degree? So we're trying to figure out what products you're interested in and what kind of companies, which is really industries you want to work in. Okay, going back. So first we looked at products. Then we made a list of engineering fields, which I'm going to post right here. Then we looked at the categories. Then I give you some examples of engineering degrees and what you could actually work in. The industries that hire. And now we're going to watch a video. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we're doing good. Okay. Okay, so let me warn you first, it's an old video. It's probably 15 years old. It's called Bikes. But what I have not found another video like this. This is a video that concentrates on one industry. And then we'll be able to see at the end of the video, the job descriptions, the functions that they have. Actually, let's look at something else first. I'm going to go back here. So we're moving, we did fields of engineering. I just moved into the industries engineers work in, and now I'm moving into functions. And I'm going to open this up first. So functions of an engineer is your job description, what you are doing. So everybody, I want you to get off mute. Get off mute. Everybody turn their voices on. Okay. So what are functions? They're job descriptions. I want you to say that. Functions are job descriptions. Loud.
Functions
are job
Functions are job descriptions. Okay, I want you to remember that because I think you're comfortable knowing there's a field of engineering. I think you're comfortable knowing an industry. But my past experience teaching this class is people get confused on what a function of an engineer. It's a job description. Are you doing research? Are you doing R&D work? Are you designing things? Are you testing things? Are you marketing things? Are you working in the field? Are you managing people? Are you working in manufacturing and production? Are you working in safety or quality control? These are all job descriptions. So let me stop sharing for a minute, and I'm seeing you guys. You could be a civil engineer and be a test engineer, or marketing in civil engineering, or doing research in civil engineering. You could be an electrical engineer and you could be a test engineer or a research engineer or working in the field or managing. Every single engineering discipline, this is really what defines who you are socially. Like, I know I would not want to be a test engineer because a test engineer runs a zillion tests on one thing, and they would drive me crazy. But some of you might be very detail oriented and love testing. Hang on. Some of you might like to be a manager, and that's probably a little bit like me. I like to manage things. I like to coordinate things. I'd like to be a project manager. That's my personality. The fact that I don't want to test things is also my personality. So the products that you like and the industries you want to work in are one thing, but the functions of an engineer is really what you like to do. Do you want to be a test engineer? Do you want to be managing people? Do you want to be working out on a job site or in a factory? You know, would you like to do that, or would you rather be in an office? These are all functions of an engineer. Could I get a thumbs up? You getting more comfortable with this? Okay, so now I'm going to go back to sharing, and now we're going to watch the video. So again, it's an oldish video, but it's the only video I've found that shows different job descriptions for one industry, bicycle, for one engineering degree. Almost everybody who works in the bicycle industry has which degree? I'll ask
Mechanical.
again. Right. In the bicycle industry, almost everyone has a mechanical engineering degree. It's one degree, one industry. However, there are many different functions there. So let's watch this video. Where is it? I thought I opened it in a new screen, but maybe I didn't. So let's go back to the module and let's open this video again. And let's see how you could get it big. And it's a YouTube video. So if it doesn't sound so good or look so good, you have the link and you can watch it again. Okay, let's see. Now it's full screen. Yeah, it looks like what I'm showing, it doesn't look so clear. It might be better if you watched it from YouTube yourself, but for now it's fine. So they're all mechanical engineers. They all work in the bicycle industry.
If you can just imagine doing your hobby for 8 hours a day, that's what I like about engineering.
But at
Some
the,
people, I work at Trek, they go, that's nice, what do you do? I'm an engineer. And usually they say something like, well, what do you need an engineer for in a bicycle industry? What do you do?
You can look around, everything that touches your life has got an engineer associated with it.
I think most people feel that engineers are nerds.
now she's a chemical engineer. She works at DuPont, but everything else is about bike industry.
To tinker, or the ability to calculate and draw. Engineering can be a very rewarding field. I think the one thing that every engineer did when he was 10 or 11 years old, he probably got in trouble because of his curiosity. Tearing things up in the house and trying to put them back together.
Aerodynamics is a large part of it. It's not a simple thing to put pipe A into connector B and the bicycle comes to be.
I wasn't one of those rocket scientist mathematicians in school. I really enjoyed science. I used to take apart my bicycle and miraculously put it all back together again with no problem.
Engineering is probably as close to a practical inventor that there is.
The wheel was the first invention at the beginning of time, and it seems that it's improved with time. We've got all kinds of composites that we use in our rims, although there's the traditional spoked wheel.
We send a wheel through a robot, and this robot measures how much wobble is in the wheel, and it corrects for that.
Bicycles have been around for a long time, but there's an endless array of ideas to try to make a bicycle faster, how to make the rider more comfortable, how to make them more aerodynamic. In my job as a test engineer, I try to simulate or try to make an experiment that will break frames like I see them breaking out on the field. One of the instruments that I do use a lot is the high cycle fatigue tester. And what we do is we take a bicycle frame and load it onto the fixture with the weights of the simulated rider. And then we excite or just move up and down the front end of the bike so that it will simulate hitting a log or a curb, or someone makes a high jump and the frame breaks a certain way. I'll try to simulate that in the lab and not have to take a 10-foot jump or something.
Our job as engineers is to design the best bicycle for the customer.
Some of the things that we try to keep in mind when we sit down and design a bicycle is what the type of person is that will be riding the bicycle. We design bicycles for males, we design bicycles for females. If a 250-pound person is going to get on the bike, they're going to have different requirements than a 120-pound person.
I've been able to make an impact on people, on products, and I feel that I've made a contribution to society as well. You might go out on a bicycle ride and people are riding a bicycle that you designed. And you just sort of think to yourself, this person is having so much fun because of the work I did.
Engineering is a mixture of art, creativity, it's imagination, all combined into one.
Engineers work on assembly problems on a daily basis. One of the things that we're facing right now now is how do we make bikes of the same quality when we're making hundreds of thousands of them.
So at the end of the
itself, I mean, there's a lot of art to it. There's a lot of geometry. There's a lot of elegance.
At the end of the video, look at the names of the people and their titles.
Work from the people who cut the tubing to the people who actually put the wheels together and who package the bike and send it out. Everybody's working together.
Good engineers have to be persistent. The solution to a problem isn't always in front of you.
Shifting is probably one of the major testing components of an old bicycle. If the bicycle doesn't shift, it doesn't move. Most of the work that I do in the build process is for the assembly, meaning the final stage of the bike as it's assembled in its final form. It's like bring in the toys, put them on the bicycle, go for a ride.
What kind of person makes a good engineer? You really need all different types of people.
One of the most valuable things you learn in getting an engineering degree is how much you can learn.
If I knew what I know now and I were back in junior high school, I would listen more in class. I would be very patient with my progress in mathematics. I would tinker. I would do my homework on time.
I can't think of too many other careers where you can have so much fun at it and still make a good living.
Any place there's a product or there's something that's made, there's an engineer necessary.
There's a lot out there to offer, and you can do a lot with an engineering degree.
You can choose your own destiny.
Yes, you can be an engineer. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. There are some fringe benefits to being an engineer.
See the titles?
Engineers are in demand.
Engineering is a lot of fun.
The engineers are the doers. You can be very creative as an engineer.
I really like engineering, yeah. It's a real neat job.
Engineering is everywhere.
Engineering as a profession is an exciting place to be.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment.
Joanne, class
Yeah.
ends it now?
Yeah, well, it's gonna end in a little bit and we're gonna keep you a little bit. So, or Priti, and you have to talk about stuff. So just hang
Yeah,
on.
I just wanted to remind
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Well, okay. So what you saw at the end is you saw the titles of people, right? So some of them were managers. They all the engineers in that video have mechanical engineering degrees, but some are working as a manager now. Some are test engineers, some are design engineers. When you see terms like technicians, those are people that do not have engineering degrees, but they work under the engineer. So that's what I want to say.